Welcome to the College Football Crazy 8 Pick'em Challenge, exclusively on Game Day Sports Radio. As usual, I'm joined by our panel of experts and a few not so expert. The coach, Boji Wood. How you doing tonight, Coach?
Doing great.
The teacher out of Texas, Steve Mock. Dave Smith, Mr. 99, out of the Midwest, wearing, I think, the Notre Dame shirt today and trying to get some retribution, not retribution, but repent for his sins of not picking Notre Dame last week.
I think from the good Lord and from my wife.
There you go. So, hey, it was honest. You know, the thing is with Notre Dame, you never know which Notre Dame's going to show up. So we've got Will. Will is in the middle of a move right now, relocating, but we're glad to have him with us. How you doing tonight, Will?
I'm good. Good to be back.
And I know you got to be excited. You got, I know, basketball season kicks off Friday night officially, which means you get to start doing more of your public address and play-by-play duties. So, and of course, I'm your host, GC. So, real quick, guys, difficult week last week. The 8-ball, though, did prevail at 6 wins. Only 5 people beat it, but I think, Steve, you'd been mentioning all season long, when are we going to see all those upsets? And, Coach, you had kind of been intimating the same thing. So, how did it all come together last week? What happened? Coach?
Well, you don't know what you're going to get from week to week, and you get a different team each week. You get a different bounce of the ball each week, and I can tell you that there are many times that I would walk up into that press box and put my headset on thinking that, man, we ain't got a chance today. And then all of a sudden, you know, we play lights out. The other team makes a few mistakes. It snowballs, and you know, we win going away. And I've walked up into that press box or stood on that sideline pretty cocky and had to eat crow that night for dinner. So you never know.
That's what makes college football so exciting. Hey, Dave, real quick, too, I have not had a chance to dig into it today, but there were some reports I saw surface early this morning, again, on the Michigan State story, and some reports coming out that Michigan may have started it. Now, it came from a lawyer, so obviously that could just be some jockeying for position as they head into the legal battle, but any substantiation to those allegations?
I had not heard that news yet. I know there was the one lone Wolverine in the tunnel after the game that time, and then I don't know if he was just lingering around afterwards. Like, I think Michigan went into the tunnel first with Michigan State following, and then maybe he was lingering out there, might have mouthed off, but I've not heard any details from the legal side of what's happening except for the 8 players from Michigan State that were held out last week.
Steve, I saw you shaking your head. You got any additional details on that one?
No, I don't. It just the questions that I've heard that have been popping up are how did we get to this point? How was it that one solo Wolverine was left with so many Spartans around? And so, like you say, that could just be legal talk coming out.
Yeah, last thing I want to say is, in a little bit of a somber note, but Coach, I had the opportunity to watch your segment yesterday when we were talking to some administrators at Jacksonville State, and you covered a topic that was not sports related about an accident there where a young girl got hit, and a very unfortunate situation. It needs to be correct, but I just wanted to commend you. I thought the piece was excellent, and I thought it was great that even though it's a sports show that you took the opportunity to bring that to light, because obviously sounds like a situation that needs to be corrected. So I just wanted to commend you for that. I thought it was a great segment.
Well, thanks. And regretfully, the young lady passed away over the weekend, and very tragic situation. And again, it's been Highway 21, crossing Highway 21 has been a problem at Jacksonville State for as long as I can remember. It was a problem when I was there back in the late 70s and early 80s. And again, and she is not the first, and I pray that she will be the last that suffers injury crossing Highway 21 there.
Well, like I said, I thought it was great that you took the opportunity to open the segment and address it, because it is something that needs to be addressed. And far too often we get caught up in our own lives and, miss kind of what's out there. So just a great segment, and I thought that was a great opportunity. I really think it was a great thing that you did yesterday. So that said, let's go ahead and get started. Steve, we got number 10 LSU at Arkansas, 11 a.m. on ESPN. Going to ask you a question to kick this one off. It seems like this week all they've talked about is Brian Kelly and beating Alabama. When you get that much talk about the previous weekend, how hard is it to focus on the next game? And do you see this one where Arkansas could really come up and bite them?
Well, I do, GC, and that's why I know y'all have teased me before about saying what happened last week isn't necessarily going to happen this week. I think when you've been reading your press clippings and celebrating all week, it makes it tough to be ready for the next opponent, especially when they are, in the minds of many, a step or two below what you just came off of knocking off. So LSU at 7-2, coming off that huge upset over Alabama. Tigers are averaging 35 points a contest, and Jaden Daniels is a threat passing and running the ball. The Razorbacks are a disappointing 5-4, coming off that home loss by 2 points to Liberty. Arkansas averages 32 points a game, so this one has the makings of a high-scoring shootout. And I know most people are going to be having that most recent image of the Tiger victory and probably be picking them. But I do wonder if Brian Kelly can get his kids to stop celebrating last week's win long enough to focus on the Razorbacks. So I'm going to go with Sam Pittman's squad to pull the upset.
I think that's a good call there. I'm going to go with Arkansas myself. Will, what do you like?
I agree. I think that I think Arkansas gets the job done. I do think that LSU comes out really sluggish and slow. I think Arkansas has a chance to jump on them pretty early. So I like the Razorbacks in this one.
Dave?
I'm with Steve. I think lots of offense in this one, and LSU still flying high off of last week's win over Alabama. A disappointing loss last week for Big Suey there as they lost to a tough Liberty team, but I'm going to sit tight, and I'm going to take LSU.
All right, Coach, was that Liberty win over in Arkansas Hugh Freeze's audition for Auburn, even though he probably doesn't need to audition? I think it's already a match made there. It's just whether or not they can get it past the administration.
Yeah, I think so. I think he just reminded everyone at Auburn is, hey, you couldn't beat Arkansas, but I could. So, if you need some help, let me know. I think that's exactly, what it was. Of course, Hugh Freeze, he wants to beat anybody that he plays every week. But again, if he wants that Auburn job and if Auburn wants him, that wasn't a bad thing to do. The Tigers, they won 5 straight in this series until last year. LSU, they pretty much dominated this series. They've got a 20-win lead in it. When I was making my picks, I'm making my notes for this. In my mind, it was LSU, LSU, LSU. I accidentally or subconsciously, what have you, typed Arkansas, but I'm going with LSU, and maybe I should have let my spirit lead me to the Hogs, but I'm going with LSU. I think Brian Kelly regroups them and tells them they've got to be refocused because it's as crazy as this sounds, they control their own destiny. There's no way that Arkansas wins out, beats Georgia in the SEC championship game, and doesn't get into the playoffs. It just doesn't happen.
Right. Well, Coach, I agree with you. As far as I don't think there's any way that LSU doesn't win out and get into the SEC championship game if that happens. And then I guess the only other place they would have to stumble would be in 2 weeks against Texas A&M, which that's just been a dumpster fire. So I don't know if you never know what you're going to get there. So, but the 8-ball likes LSU. 8-ball goes with you, and I guess this will be an opportunity too to, obviously Brian Kelly. A lot of people think he's a great coach, and this will be another opportunity to see how he gets his team pointed and back in the right direction. If he gets the focus or keeps them focused and gets the noise out of their head. So.
Yeah.
Another opportunity.
Well, you know why he was crying last week after the game, don't you?
No.
It was because he finally got to play Nick Saban with SEC athletes. That's why.
There you go. That's true. It was the first time he's played Alabama, and he didn't have to he'd have his post-game speech that, hey, well, we're the only ones that kept him within 2 touchdowns. We actually scored 21 points on him. He was always looking for some factor to try to measure, to try to chalk up a victory against him. But anyways, so. Hey, Coach, I'm going to give you an opportunity here if you want to get up and leave the room. We're about to talk about one of your favorite teams. So, or do you just want me to go ahead and put Illinois just right? Did you go ahead and put the pick of Illinois down for you?
I tell you Purdue can keep their big drum, which is not even the biggest drum anyway. Big Bertha down in Texas is the biggest college drum in the world. And don't even talk to me. Just put me down for the Illini.
I figured as we're going. Hey, Dave, real quick, not surprisingly, but I've had a few people, inquire as to, what's it like to be a public address announcer at the level that you've done it, and I know different, NBA versus college. And even, I keep the book at high school. So that's in no stretch of the imagination at any level that you've been at. But, what's the goal sometimes in there? Is it keep the fans into the game to just do the information? I know, for some of the kids you get younger, they just love hearing their name called. So, I mean, how do you approach that?
I guess for me, since I've been doing it, when I came to the Chicagoland area for school, listening to the Bulls in their prime at that is where the whole thing for PA announcing really started to develop. And just listening and hearing the announcer for the Chicago Bulls and the starting lineups, and like how excited it got the fans and everything, and going up to a Bulls game for the first time, the atmosphere was just ridiculous. And I'm getting goosebumps talking about it right now. And I got goosebumps every time I did one of the Chicago Bulls games, because it was like just a rush to do that in front of the crowd, to get everybody excited, just to get all the lights, the pyrotechnic, everything put together was just so exciting. But I guess in going into every single game I've done since high school, for a small college, the pros, or Division I, which I'm doing right now, it's being a professional. And the gentleman that kind of showed me when I went to Olivet and got started into it, it's just being professional so people know what to expect. And so much right now is, I think it's such like a big, like, woo, like they try to really overplay it, in my opinion. And I'm not a fan of that, to where they got DJs and stuff like that with the music in the background and getting all hyped up and stuff. I think there's a more professional way you can do it, but that's not the way like NBA teams are doing it right now. Is they are trying to maybe get the younger generation into it, rather than a classic game where the music and the sound and just the roar of the crowd would get you excited. It's changed. But I guess the way I've always done it is it's being professional going to do it, because you know what, people, they'll come back and respect that, rather than going in to a game and hearing something that's like, that's horrible. That is just horrible. And then people remember that. But you know what? When you don't do anything too crazy out of the line, like, oh, this guy can do it. Right. So I guess that's how I've always went to do games.
Like I said, it's just, most people get nervous getting up to speak in front of an audience of 10, when you get in there and you've got an audience of, 20,000, surrounded, and a lot of them are looking at the back of your head, just, I guess you tone that out and just get used to it. But anyways, we had some people asking, it was an interesting question, and I just, at your level, I thought it'd be good to get your perspective on it. So.
Yep. Well, this is my 31st year, so I just did my first game last night for Illinois State. Their season got underway, so yeah, another season under the belt, and so let's get it going.
There you go. All right. Well, Purdue, who knows? I mean, they show up to they've been an offensive firepower most of the season, lost some close games. We've talked many times on here, do they know how to win? But then they go Iowa. I mean, they couldn't even, Iowa, decent defense, but again, I don't know that we expected them to shut them down like that. And then, of course, Brett Bielema, the world was his oyster, and then he does a Brett Bielema thing, which he seems to do every year, and stumbles on one. So this game actually becomes a little bit more exciting, because a Purdue win puts them in the driver's seat for the Big Ten championship game. So who do you like?
Well, I was laughing at some of the texts coming from Coach and you during the game, and that was just a flat-out garbage game for Purdue versus Iowa last week. And it wasn't a whole lot better from U of I either, as they went down to a depleted Michigan State team. But for Purdue, I am not sure what team you're going to see show up this week. If you're going to see a fast going locomotive, or maybe the one that crapped out on the field last week when they had to push it off the field right before the game started. But Illinois better not be looking ahead to the Michigan game next week, and I think Brett Bielema is going to get the Illini back on track this week, so I'll take Illinois at home.
Will.
I agree. I like the Illini too.
Steve.
Well, Purdue's lost 2 in a row, and while QB Aiden O'Connell connects on 64% of his passes, their ground game is almost non-existent. The Illini have won 5 of 6 at home. I look for them to rebound from that awful performance against Michigan State, and I think the Illinois defense will be the difference.
You know what? I'm either way I go. None of these teams either win for me when I pick them, just like Coach. So he went Illinois. I'm going to go Illinois because I just can't get on the Purdue bandwagon anymore. So I'm going Illinois. However, 8-ball likes Purdue, Coach. 8-ball likes Purdue. You're going to come down if Purdue wins with in the 8-ball picture. You're going to come down and smash it with a hammer this week, aren't you? So
No comment.
all right, Coach. Here, this one's yours. You love to talk about this city and this college. Iowa State at Oklahoma State. I think in Iowa State, you look at a team. We talked about Florida and Texas A&M, big disappointments last year. I don't think you looked at the Big 12 that you could find a team more disappointing than Iowa State. They had high expectations to start the season. There was even some talk that they might make the Big 12 title game. They limp into this one against an Oklahoma State team that, again, seems to be limping themselves. I know they've got some quarterback issues, but has not looked good in the last 2 weeks. So it is at Oklahoma State, so maybe that pregame meal of Eskimo Joe's will get them going. But what do you think?
Cyclones started out 3-0, then lost 5 straight before they beat West Virginia last week. Now, the Cowboys are used to scoring about 16 points a quarter. However, they've only scored 16 points total in the last 2 games, and the losses to Kansas State and Kansas. Of course, they were without Spencer Sanders. Cowboys have won 8 of the last 10 in this series. However, it's been very close. There's only a 22-point difference over the last 7 games, so about a field goal. There's no word from Gundy yet on whether Sanders is going to play or not. If he doesn't play, they're going to have to turn to freshman Garrett Rangel. 2 touchdowns, but 3 interceptions versus Kansas last week. Iowa State, they win in Stillwater, about once every 10 years. They've won 4 times in Stillwater over the last 42 years. So I'm going to go with the Cowboys and the home field advantage and to be able to go to Eskimo Joe's and get some loaded chili cheese fries.
There you go. Will?
I like Oklahoma State in this one. I think last week after the Kansas game, I think they bounce back and I think they get the job done.
Dave?
I got no clue what's been going on in Stillwater the last few weeks, but Gundy needs to shake them boys up. And like Coach said, the Cyclones, they've been in every game so far this year, but I'm also going to take Oklahoma State.
Steve?
Well, Iowa State's at 4-5. They want to do it with ground and pound. The Cyclones' defense is only allowing 16 points a game, which is 9th in the country. Cowboys are 6-3. Very happy that they don't have to play any more games in the Sunflower State after losses at Kansas and Kansas State. You know, they've been averaging 36 points a game for Oklahoma State, but a lot of that was with Spencer Sanders. When he's running the show, they're a different team. I think the downward spiral continues this week, and maybe they can drown their tears with a couple of beers at Eskimo Joe's. I'll take the Cyclones.
Well, you took the Cyclones. It sounded like you're going Oklahoma State there. Just a little Eskimo Joe's tease. Well, I'm going to go with you too, Steve. I think Iowa State, I just quarterback problems too deep at Oklahoma State. Not sure where they're going to go, so I'm going Iowa State. And 8-ball likes Iowa State. So, Steve, this next game, there's been a lot of talk about it this week. Most of it is about they feel like the college game day should have been there for them this week. 2 programs that mid-majors that are, a group of 5 schools that are doing very well. You got number 25 UCF at number 19 Tulane, 2:30 p.m.
Yeah, you mentioned college game day, and they did make a big deal on the CFP show last night that while they're going to be in Austin, they're there for TCU. They believe that TCU is the story. So in this one, the Central Florida Knights are 7-2. Traveling to New Orleans to face the 8-1 Green Wave of Tulane. The Knights beat Memphis last week, 35-28, and their offense is scoring 35.7 a contest. Their defense is ranked 16th in the country, only giving up 18.8 points a game. Tulane's defense is tough, allowing just a smidge under 17. So in a low-scoring affair, I'll take QB Mikey Keene and Central Florida.
Hey, what's the you didn't even meant? Oh, that's fine. I got it. Never mind. I got to cut that up. I jumped ahead. Sorry. All right, Will.
I like Tulane at home. I hate to go against Gus Malzahn, but I think the Green Wave is playing really good football right now. So I got Tulane.
Coach?
This is going to be the biggest game on Tulane's campus, maybe in forever. And Mike Bernard, our colleague over at OTM Sports, always talks about the pressure of November. And we're getting deep into November right now. Gus Malzahn, he's used to coaching in big games like this. I'm looking for Central Florida to go in and win. I'll take the Knights.
Dave?
I'm wondering what they're putting in the water down in New Orleans. And I think this might be one of the most entertaining games on Saturday. I think it's going to be a really close one, but I'm also going to give the benefit to Gus Malzahn, and I think I'm going to take UCF.
Yeah, I agree. I'm going to go UCF. And Gus Malzahn has a quarterback that runs his system. They're tough to stop, and it's hard to simulate in practice. It's something that most teams aren't used to seeing. So I go UCF. But I guess the 8 ball wants to go down and have a few hurricanes because the 8 ball is going with Tulane. So there you go. All right, Dave. We got Kansas State at Baylor, 6 p.m. Kansas State dropped to 4-2 in conference last week with the loss to Texas, so they're playing from a little bit of the outside. Baylor still controls their own destiny, still has games ahead of them with Texas and TCU, but really the Texas game is going to be the biggest. So Kansas State travels to Baylor. Baylor's tough at home, but who do you like?
Well, both teams come into this one at 6-3, and like you said, a hard loss last week for K-State against the Longhorns. But the Wildcats continue to put up points even with injuries to some of their key players this year. And Baylor, they come in on a 3-game win streak, being led by sophomore quarterback Blake Shapen, which he's had a really good season so far. I think the Baylor offense will continue to light up the scoreboard, so I'm going to take Baylor.
Coach?
Since Chris Kleiman's been at Kansas State, he's had some really big wins, Oklahoma State, but he's never beaten Baylor. I think this is the year. I'm going to go with the Wildcats, Kansas State in the upset.
Will?
I like Baylor at home. I think they're tough to play at home, so I got Baylor.
Steve?
Yeah, Kansas State 6-3, trying to bounce back from a touchdown defeat at the hands of UT. The Bears, also 6-3, are riding high after upsetting OU up in Norman. Baylor's averaging 38 a game, and I think this will be a topsy-turvy battle. And they are fighting for second place and the chance to battle TCU in the conference championship game. I'll take the Bears.
I got Baylor too. I think they got more to play for. I think they're a little more motivated, and I think they're a little bit more on the upswing and Kansas State on the downswing. So, but we've got the 8 ball. 8 ball likes Baylor. So there we go. So, Coach, a big game that everybody's been talking about. Steve mentioned Texas. They're heading their game day head into Texas down in Austin. You got number 7 TCU, who felt a little snubbed last week, but I guess really felt like they got where they deserved by being number 4 in the college football playoff this week. Number 7 TCU at number 24 Texas, 6:30 p.m. on ABC.
Well, it's pretty simple for TCU. They went out, and it's going to be tough for the committee to keep them out of the playoffs. And I think they've got TCU at number 4 for a reason. I think they know they're going to stumble somewhere along the way. As far as this game goes, the Horned Frogs have won 7 of the last 10, but they split the last 4. Frogs 9-0 for the first time since 2010. They beat Wisconsin in the Rose Bowl that year. Finished 13-0, right behind Auburn, who was named national champions. I think this is a huge game for Sark. If he can knock off number 4 TCU, he shows that the Oklahoma game wasn't an anomaly. This is going to be the Max Duggan, Quint Ewers show. But I think the secret weapon is going to be which defense can step up. And the secret weapon of the secret weapon is Gary Patterson, who was the head coach at TCU for 21 seasons, on that staff for a couple of more as DC before he got the head coaching job. He's special assistant to the head coach at Texas. Don't think this game is not circled for him. And I'm going Texas.
Oh,
I agree. I think TCU is going to trip up at some point. I think it's this weekend. I got the Horns at home.
Dave.
Well, I'm going to go a different angle because life is good right now for the Horned Frogs, 9-0. Austin's alive again under Steve Sarkisian, and they're just 6-3. But Las Vegas, I think, knows something. The Horns are a 7-point favorite in this one. Why? Hook 'em Horns. I'm going to take Texas.
Yeah, I saw that when we put this one out there, and that's an interesting question. Like you said, what do they know? Steve, I guess, maybe what they know is that somehow Texas has figured out how to play in the second half with a lead because, again, last week it started to slip away. And I mean, it's not the first time, and that's starting to become the way to define Texas right now. They seem to be a one-half wonder. So, they got Baylor. I mean, they got TCU at home, but can they hold the lead if they get the lead, or do they got to play from behind to win?
Yeah, well, I think they're looking for this one to be more of a back and forth shootout because like the worst thing for Longhorn fans right now is seeing Texas get off to a big halftime lead because they go to sleep at the half. They don't make any halftime adjustments. The other team usually adjusts. And there are a lot of people wondering what Sark is doing after doing the pregame preparation. So TCU's the last undefeated team in the Big 12. They keep playing close games, but you got to give them credit for winning them. Longhorns have won 4 out of 5, and they want to get star running back Bijan Robinson unleashed against a not-so-tough Horned Frogs defense. With College game day there and the Longhorns faithful getting revved up all day long, I'll take Texas in a shootout. Hook 'em.
You guys all like Texas. Then Dave, the one thing that tips it for me is what you said, that Vegas has got them as a 7-point favorite. Otherwise, I'd probably go TCU. TCU's has found a way to win at the end, but I think there's something going on there, so I'm going Texas as well. And the 8-ball must be dialed into to Vegas because the 8-ball likes Texas as well. So, all right, Steve, you got Florida State playing well last couple of weeks, showing some lots of improvement. Syracuse going the other direction. So you got Florida State at Syracuse, 7 p.m. on the ACC network.
Yeah, the 6-3 Seminoles traveled to upstate New York to battle Dino Babers and the Orangemen. Syracuse started the year with 6 straight victories, but now they've lost 3 in a row. The Orange offense couldn't find the end zone in last week's 19-9 loss at Pittsburgh. Florida State's won 2 straight, and Mike Norvell has his offense clicking on all cylinders. Even though it'll be an emotional senior day crowd in Syracuse, I think that Florida State offense that averages 211 yards rushing per game will run wild. And I'll go with the Seminoles on the road.
There you go. Coach.
Seminoles got bowl eligible last week with that win over Miami, which strangely in Tallahassee, after the last several seasons, that's a pretty big deal. I like Mike Norvell and what he's got going on there. Their squad has showed marked improvement all year. And listen, I like Dino Babers. I think he's a good coach. But that emotionally draining loss down in Clemson a few weeks ago may have cost them their season. And I like Florida State in this one.
Will.
I got the Noles in this one too. I think, the last 2 weeks they played really good football, putting a lot of points up on the board. But I got Florida State. Syracuse, I don't really know what's been going on with them the last 3 weeks. So give me the Noles.
Dave.
Yeah, Seminoles feeling good, heading in the right direction. Orange, they're going the other way after losing 3 straight, and I think FSU has too much speed, so I'll take Florida State.
I go Florida State as well. But the 8-ball likes the emotion of the senior night, and it goes with Syracuse. So thanks to the Big Orange getting back on track this week. Dave, last week Kansas gets their quarterback back comes back and gets back on the winning train. They travel to Lubbock, Texas Tech, always a tough place to play. How do you see this one finishing out?
Well, you can see the difference of having a good quarterback, and the Jayhawks continue to ride in the back of quarterback Jalen Daniels, who just came back after losing 3 straight. Kansas got back on the winning track with that victory over Oklahoma State last week. The Red Raiders, they've lost 4 of the last 5, but continue to play well at home in Lubbock. And Kansas, they're putting up like 38 points a game right now. Tech is scoring around 33 a game. Both are giving up an average of 29 points a game. So I think this could be a close one, but I'm going to take the home team in this one. I'll take Texas Tech.
Coach.
I have to acknowledge the Red Raiders, their explosive offense, and Kansas is scoring a lot of points, but it's not from an explosive manner, a big play manner. It's more methodical drives and taking advantage of the deep ball when you can get it. I really don't have any reason for this pick other than the fact I just think Kansas is going to get this win, so I'm going Jayhawks.
There you go. Will.
I like Kansas too. I think they had a big win last week, so I got the Jayhawks in this one.
Steve, you got some tortillas?
Well, I do think they'll be flying. The Red Raiders at 4-5, coming off a tough 34-24 loss at TCU. Both of these defenses have been, how shall we say, generous. So in a game with plenty of points, I'll go with the home team and take the Red Raiders.
I'm going Kansas. I think quarterback's got something to prove there. He's back. He looked healthy last week. And Dave, to your point, just goes to show sometimes the difference between having a good quarterback and somebody that's still in development. So I go Kansas. But 8-ball like Steve, Texas Tech. So there we go. All right, Coach. North Carolina, other than a slip up to Notre Dame, looks like they're going to be seeing Clemson in the ACC championship game here in a couple of weeks. Wake Forest still hanging around and losing some close games, and they're doing it, but they're not getting the wins. So North Carolina, Wake Forest, 6:30 ESPN2.
Wake, as you said, they've lost 2 in a row. One was that weird game at Louisville where they had 8 turnovers. Just didn't play that well last week at North Carolina State. The Demon Deacons quarterback Sam Hartman, he's the bell cow in that offense, 24 touchdowns and 9 interceptions. Drake May for the Tar Heels, 31 touchdowns, only 3 interceptions. He is also the leading rusher for North Carolina. And let's not forget about the Tar Heels wide receiver return specialist, Josh Downs. He's a difference maker. I look for him to have a big role in this game plan. The North Carolina margin of victory on the road is only 3.6 points, so less than 4 points per game, but they've won every game on the road. All the trends point to Wake Forest, as their only home loss is that double overtime heartbreaker to Clemson. But a win wraps up the Coastal Division for Mack Brown and the North Carolina Tar Heels. I'm a big Mack Brown fan. I love that powder blue. I'm going North Carolina.
Will.
I got the Tar Heels in this one, and I think it's going to be a really close game. Like Coach said, their margin of victory on the road is really small. I think it'll be a really good football game, but 2 words, Drake May. The kid is phenomenal. In my opinion, he should be definitely on the Heisman ballot, but I got the Tar Heels on the road close.
Hey, Coach, Will mentioned Heisman ballot. You think Bo Nix is front and center there now? He seems to be still lagging in some of the conversation, but just based off his numbers, it's just hard to see how he's not top of the pack.
Well, I think things go back to the last time that he was truly on the national stage in that Georgia game. He didn't play well. The whole team didn't play well. And again, they were playing the number 1 team in the country. I think Bo is kind of like that racehorse, is that he's kind of just pacing himself. And when the time's right, he puts out a good performance, and CJ Stroud, a couple of other these guys have bad weeks, then I think it's going to be a neck and neck race. So, don't know what's going to happen, but he's definitely in the picture.
There you go. Dave, who do you like?
This one's definitely an audition for both quarterbacks here to be playing on Sundays one day, but As they talked about North Carolina's freshman quarterback Drake May, he's been playing lights out this year. Junior quarterback Sam Hartman continues to impress with his numbers, and I think this is going to be a good one, and I think going to be a close one as well. I'm going to take Wake Forest.
Steve.
Yeah, the only blemish on the Tar Heels record for Mac Brown is that loss to Notre Dame. Their offense is averaging 40 points a game. Wake seems to be struggling at 6-3, coming off the loss to NC State. The Demon Deacons also are explosive at 37 points a game. So I look for a high-scoring shootout, and I'll take Wake.
I go with Wake too. I like Mac Brown, coach, but I don't share the same confidence that you do in him. It seems like when he's got that chance to get it and put it away, he always stumbles. So I'm going with Wake, and the 8-ball likes Wake. So here we go. Last one of the night. Texas A&M still. I mean, what can you say about them? But Auburn started off very slow last week, and then some coaches running down the sidelines, pulling some hamstrings, and Carnell Williams getting them fired up, and they showed some life in the second half, came back, lost in overtime. But I think this game's going to be interesting to see what their level of enthusiasm is and how they come out for this one. So Texas A&M at Auburn. Well, who do you like?
I don't think either team, Texas A&M or Auburn, can remember the last time they won a ball game. I feel like it's been that long. But this is the definition of the Tulip Bowl, in my opinion. Both teams fighting for the last spot in their division. But I like the energy that Auburn showed last week. Obviously, with Cadillac Williams being named interim head coach, there was a lot of life. These kids called back after halftime. And I think that he's got them playing good football, good team football, and like he likes to say, the Auburn football way. So I like Auburn at home. And the funny thing is, I don't think anybody at the beginning of the year would have thought that this game would have even been like this. I think people would have thought Texas A&M would have just walked in here and smoked Auburn, but has a little bit more meaning. To Auburn probably more than A&M, but I like the Tigers at home.
Steve.
A&M's 3-6, riding that 5-game losing streak for the first time in 42 years. Haynes King was back at QB for the Aggies in that loss to Florida last week, as freshman Connor Wegman was out with the flu. Auburn also 3-6, and they may be the only team in the SEC with more turmoil going on than Jimbo Fisher's crew. They've already axed Brian Harsin. I think Auburn will want to run it. I've lost about 11-something in a row picking A&M, so give me the War Eagles.
Son going to come home this weekend and see you?
Coming home at Thanksgiving, and he's not going to be happy either way with the way that team's playing.
All right, Dave.
Well, being a Big Ten guy here in the Midwest, this game is not what I think of when I think of SEC football this year. It might as well be like Vanderbilt and Missouri. No offense.
There you go.
But the Tigers under the new head coach, Cadillac Williams, filling in. I think he's going to get through the Tigers. I think they're going to be looking to control things with the run game, especially with Cadillac Williams. Jimbo Fisher, he's just got a hot mess on his hands right now. And I'm with Steve. I won't be taking Texas A&M anymore this year. So this is at Jordan Hare. I'll take Auburn.
Coach.
Inexplicable losses, locker room incidents, injuries, flu outbreaks. Back in the late 70s, there was a character on Saturday Night Live, Rosanna Dana, and her catchphrase was, "It's always something." And that's the way it is with Texas A&M right now. It's always something. This week, Anthony Hill Jr., the number 2 linebacker in the country who had been committed to the Aggies, said, "Hey, I want to step back and look at some other options here." It just has not been a good season for Jimbo Fisher at all. The Tigers, as everyone said, play with so much passion against Mississippi State last week under Cadillac Williams, dropped down 22 points. And again, they don't come back if Brian Harsin's on the sideline, but they play with so much enthusiasm, so much passion. They're not talented. They don't have an offensive or defensive lineman that probably could start at another top-tier SEC school. uh, who wants it more? You know, a lot of times that's just coach speak, but I think it's true in this case. I think it is who wants it more. And I think Auburn wants it more right now. I'm picking the Tigers.
I agree. I'm going with the Tigers. I think they're having more fun. I think Cadillac Williams has injected some energy in there to tell them to have some fun and letting them have some fun. And I think he's having fun. And I think that's trickling down to the players. So I'm going Auburn. But Steve, at least you probably can get a little bit in your good graces here with your son because the 8-ball went with A&M. So you just tell him you didn't want to beat the 8-ball this week, and so you threw it. Okay.
Yeah, it's not a clean sweep. He'll be happy for that.
So, well, thanks for your time today, guys. It's always great to talk to you. I think some good stuff, couple of good games that'll, obviously some people should be seeing their way and locking up some bids into some conference championships. We'll see Brian Kelly can get the Tigers, to keep them focused after the big win at Alabama against Alabama last week. I think this will be a true measure of one of his, a measure of one characteristic of a coach, and that's keeping your team focused and keeping the eye on the prize. And Brett Bielema, can he get over the hump and get Illinois where they need to be in a Big Ten championship? I think Illinois will be elated to see themselves back there. And of course, always interesting when you have a matchup like UCF and Tulane, then everybody's intrigued by it. People don't know a lot about those teams, so it obviously sparks some interest. And then the final one is TCU. Are they for real? And the committee did them a favor by putting them up at 4. I think a lot of people still thought they should be at 5 based off their schedule, and they're up there. So now they got to prove that they deserve to be there. So this is their first test on the road against Texas. So lots of excitement this week. So you guys have a great week. Enjoy some college football this week, and we'll look forward to doing this again next week.
So long.
Have a good one.
There we go.